Hello and Yajong everyone! In today's video, I'll be showing you guys how to make the iconic Pandan Honeycomb Cake. And this cake is a very well-known Vietnamese dessert. It's also well-known in Indonesia, but made in slightly different technique and ingredients to it. But it is a dessert that a lot of Hmong families and Hmong people love to bake and make for special occasions. So today I'll be showing you guys my version of it. I've done so many recipes of this and I failed like at least 3 times because either I over whipped the eggs, I used the wrong baking powder, the baking powder didn't work, I used too much flour. You know, this cake is so simple, but it is also very hard to make because it's very technical. There's little techniques in there that does make a difference and affects the honeycomb structure to it. So today I'll be showing you guys a recipe that I've been working on for the past couple of weeks, and I finally narrowed down the recipe to the way I like it and to the way that it has a very nice honeycomb shape to it, and it also stays soft for at least 2 days out in room temperature. So I hope you guys give it a try and let me know if this recipe works out for you. I know there's tons of recipe out there that you guys probably have used, and let me know which one you guys have used and which one has worked out for you. But in today's video I'll be showing you guys the one that I have worked on and has worked well for me, and I do really enjoy it. So yeah, let's go ahead and start baking. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm gonna go ahead and preheat my oven to 350 and put that and let it preheat, and I'm gonna stick in the pan that you're gonna use to bake it in. So I'm gonna put this here, place this pan in the oven. So we want the pan hot. That also helps it with baking and rising of the cake. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick that in the oven while the oven is preheating. So close that up. Okay, so while the oven is preheating with the pan, we are going to go ahead and warm up the sugar and coconut milk in a pan. So here I have about 1.25 cups of sugar. You guys can just do 1 cup or more depending on how sweet you guys want this cake. So we're just gonna add in about 1.25 cups today. Add this in there. And then we're also going to add in some salt. And then I'm gonna also add in a can of coconut milk. This is about 400 milliliters, which is just roughly 1 can today. This is the one I'm using today, if you guys were curious. The organic coconut milk, 400 milliliters or 14 fluid ounces. All right, we're gonna turn on the heat and let this warm up, basically just to melt the sugar. You don't have to bring this to a boil because we need to cool this down anyways after the sugar's melted, so that we don't mess up the temperature with the eggs or cook the eggs as we add this in there. You can tell if when you're mixing this, there shouldn't be any grittiness on the bottom. It should be nice and smooth. If it's nice and smooth on the bottom, then it is ready to go. Alright, so it's nice and smooth on the bottom, and also if you want, you can just touch this right here. And if it's nice and smooth, you don't feel any grittiness from the sugar, it should be ready to go. So I'm going to turn this off and then let this cool until we can use it. You guys can definitely stick this in the refrigerator or just put the pan over ice water. Just let it cool completely before using it. So set that aside, and we'll go ahead and start measuring out our dry ingredients and also mess with the eggs. So let's do that. Okay, so let's talk about dry ingredients. So here I have about 2 cups of tapioca starch or flour, and then I also added about 1/4 cup of rice flour in there. And then to that, I'm going to go ahead and add in some baking powder. So this recipe, I am not using the ASA pink bag single acting baking powder. I'm just using the regular store-bought double acting baking powder, and I'm using about a tablespoon of that into this recipe. And about a tablespoon of that, go ahead and mix that up really well. Alright, and then that's about it for the dry ingredients. We're gonna go ahead and set that aside, and let's work on the eggs. Alright, so here today I am using about 6 whole eggs. And this is the part where I also find very tedious. If you over mix the eggs, this recipe is not going to have a honeycomb texture as well. And the first time I did it, I over whipped the eggs. Like, I whipped it too much to the point where when it cooked in the oven, it flated up really big and then deflate at the end. So at this point, we're just going to take a fork and we're just going to poke the yolks just to break it apart. And you don't want to create any air pockets or air bubbles in here. You basically just want to mix the yolks well enough to combine with the whites. So at this first stage of mixing the eggs, you don't really want to over mix it, because you will mix it even more when you add in the flour and the coconut syrup and also your food coloring of choice. So at this point, this looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. Alright, so to the eggs, we are going to go ahead and add in the coconut syrup that we heated up earlier. And then we're gonna add in the pandan extract or paste. I'm going to add in about like a teaspoon of this, depending on how strong and how deep of a color you want it to be. Add as much as you want. I'm just going to add in about a teaspoon of that. Ooh. And then with your fork, go ahead and mix that really well. Alright, that's good. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go ahead and add in the dry ingredients now. You can still see a little bit of the whites not fully mixed yet, which is nice. I'm going to go ahead and add in the dry ingredients carefully. Oops. And then with the whisk now, I'm going to go ahead and just make sure all of the rice flour and the tapioca is mixed in well with the coconut milk and eggs. And it's going to get a little bit lumpy, which is completely fine, because we're going to put this through the sieve. Most of the lumps will disappear anyways. At this point here, I'm just trying to mix the dry into the wet so that it's easier to put through the sieve. You don't want to over mix it as well at this point here. Just break up the bigger chunks. Okay, so now we can go ahead and put this through the sieve, and once the oven is nicely preheated with our pan, we can go ahead and pour this over the pan. Okay, so I have a sieve here over a bowl. I'm just going to go ahead and add in the batter here, and it is still a little chunky. It is completely fine because we're going to put it through the sieve anyways. It's kind of nice because tapioca flour and rice flour, they're both non-gluten. So there's no gluten that's being created here. That means the lumps are going to be easier to actually break apart. Okay, take your spatula here. And basically, I'm going to lift this up. And I'm going to go ahead and press this down the sieve. Scrape the bottom if you needed to. Easier that way. Alright, that's good. Scrape all of that out. So there's that batter. So the last thing we're going to add in here is some coconut oil. This is melted coconut oil. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of that in here. Let's go ahead and add that in there. It's melted completely. Go ahead and just mix that well in here. And the batter is pretty much done. Let's go ahead and put this into the preheated oven with the pan inside as well that has been heated up. I'm going to go ahead and spray the pan with some cooking spray. Alright, so that's good. I don't want to mix it too much. Alright, I'm a really hot pan here. Make sure you wear butt mittens. What I'm going to do is go ahead and spray this with a non-stick dipping pan, because it's going to stick to the bottom and to the sides. You guys can definitely use a round pan as well, or a square pan, whatever you guys want. I'm using this today. So go ahead and add in your filling. That's good.
And then what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take it back into the oven.
And then we're gonna cook it for about 40 to 45 minutes or until the cake is fully cooked in the center. And then we'll let it cool in the oven with the oven door slightly opened. And then we can take it out of the mold.
So yeah, let's go ahead and flip this out.
Down like that.
Voila! Oh my gosh, so beautiful. Okay, so the moment we've been waiting for. I'm gonna take a serrated knife. I'm gonna cut this and see how we did. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, look at that. Beautiful. Woo, this is pretty much done. Look at this, the honeycomb structure here. Nice and brown on the outside here. Same with the bottom here. And then when you stretch, when you kind of stretch this around, it's a nice stretchiness to it and also bounce back as well. Perfect. And when you rip this apart, you can actually see the honeycomb. Look at that. Beautiful.